Well, a group of Satanists is tonight claiming victory after a court told the state of Oklahoma to remove a monument to the Ten Commandments from the state capitol. Before the ruling, the Satanists wanted to install their own tribute, a pagan idol showing a bearded goat, something like this, on the Capitol grounds, right next to the Ten Commandments. Joining us now, Randy Brogdon, who's a former Oklahoma state senator who authored the bill to install the Ten Commandments monument. Also, Lucian Graves, spokesman for the Satanic Temple. We will begin with Lucian. All right, Lucian. So is it like Lucian as in Lucifer? Is that why you're called that?
Sure, as you like.
That's not just as you like. I don't like. Is that your birth name?
No, it's not.
Okay. So what is it that first drew you to the Satanic Temple?
Well, I helped co-found the Satanic Temple.
Why?
Why? Because it is an embodiment of my deeply held beliefs, and I think there's a distinct need for a counterbalance against the dominant religious privilege in America today.
What are the deeply held beliefs that drew you to the Satanic Temple?
Well, we have 7 tenets. You can look them up online, but essentially we view Satan as a symbolic embodiment of the ultimate rebel against tyranny.
Okay, so now you're happy because you got the Ten Commandments taken down, but are you still pushing to have the goat with the horns and so on put up on the state capitol grounds?
No, we don't want our monument there without the Ten Commandments there. The point all along was that it would complement and contrast the Ten Commandments and reaffirm that we live in a pluralistic nation that respects diversity and religious liberty.
But the thing with the horns and so on, the Ten Commandments goes up because not only does it have some religious meaning, but it has historical meaning too. I mean, would you acknowledge that about the Ten Commandments?
Well, I would. Well, yes, if you would acknowledge that Baphomet has historical meaning as well.
The Baphomet is the goat with the
the image at least goes back to the 19th century. It's at least as old as Mormonism in any case.
Okay, so let's say it does, but do you acknowledge that about the Ten Commandments? So there's nothing, you have no problem with the Ten Commandments standing there next to your devil figure, right?
That's correct. So long as multiple points of view are allowed, there's nothing wrong with a religious monument being up. But that really wasn't the argument that Oklahoma was making. They were saying that it wasn't a religious monument and that the Ten Commandments monument served a secular purpose, which is outright false.
Well, the U.S. Supreme Court, found that. I mean, the U.S. Supreme Court has already ruled that the Ten Commandment, that the displays not only have a religious significance, but also a historical one.
Well, you're talking a different type of issue because in Oklahoma, they were ruling by the state constitution, not the federal constitution.
I know,
so it's
but
an entirely different issue. If you're talking Texas, it's a moot point.
It's not that different, but you're right.
No,
Texas,
it's entirely different. We're talking different constitutions.
I've looked at them both.
We're talking state constitution versus federal constitution.
I know.
So there's
I looked at them
both.
And then I practiced law for like a decade too, so I did read them and see a lot of similar words. Lucian, thank you. Good luck to you.
And I taught you that there was a separation between that there was a difference between the federal constitution and the state constitution.
Thank you for that. All right, good to see you. Joining me now with more, former Oklahoma State Senator and Chairman of the Oklahoma GOP, Randy Brogdon. Good to see you tonight, sir. So that was interesting. However,
good evening, Megan.
So he has a point. That if you're going to display something that is religious on state grounds, you may have to open it up to more than just one faith, right?
Well, no, that's not right at all, Megan. You are an attorney and you know how state law works, and that's the beauty of living in America. We have 50 different states with different ideas, different goals, different values, and each state is able to govern the people as the people allow that to happen. So here in Oklahoma, we take our government very serious, and even in the Oklahoma Constitution, the preamble states that we invoke the guidance of Almighty God. And so we take that pretty seriously here in Oklahoma.
Yeah, but if you open it up, if the state is seen as endorsing in any way or affirming one religion, that's where it gets into trouble. So if you could have solved the whole thing by letting him have his little, Baphomet.
Well, Megan, he would need to come to the state legislature and get his bill passed just like I did. I was a Senate author for this bill. Mike Ritz, the representative, was a House author, and We moved that through, and we were very diligent in crafting the language because we knew the debate that was soon to follow, and so we put the language in there.
And you had the benefit of the U.S. Supreme Court decision, which had happened years
references.
earlier. So I mean,
Sure.
they talk about how the Oklahoma state constitution is different from the U.S. Constitution. That's true. It's a little bit more narrow. But this court clearly could have read this to fall within the U.S. Supreme Court precedent, and they clearly didn't want it. They wanted those 10 commandments gone.
Yeah, they want the 10 Commandments gone, and like I said, when we wrote the legislation, we were very diligent to make sure that it did meet all of the criteria of the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, with that said, I really don't believe the U.S. Supreme Court has much to say on what we put on the Oklahoma Capitol grounds. But with that said, we knew what the debate would be, and so we wrote the legislation to guard against that.
And yet you lost 7-2 by judges who chose to read the Oklahoma Constitution in the narrowest of ways, which has raised some legitimate questions about whether they had an end that they wanted to meet, and they got there. Randy, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So that was interesting. He felt a lifelong calling to join with Satan, and there are 7 tenets, which I will not be Googling.